You are listening to the Billy Dees podcast. We are waiting just a minute for everyone to engage the live stream. Remember, you can find the Billy Dees podcast on your favorite platform.
Right. Well, hello, everyone out on X and any number of other various platforms. Welcome to you all. If we always just wait just a moment for everyone to engage the live stream, sometimes people have to, refresh their browser, refresh their app, or whatever. With me is, of course, Cynthia Eliott. She's my regular co-host and a guest. I'll introduce her in just a moment. KT Truther from the KT Truther podcast. All that is coming up. Again, if you're new here, we wait just a moment for everybody to lock onto the live stream. I pause just a moment, and then we record the audio podcast separately in the background, and we more or less invite in a live audience, which is you. So thank you very much for joining us. I'm going to pause just a second and go ahead and begin the program. Thank you so much. All right. Well, hello, everyone, and welcome to the program. As always, I am absolutely thrilled that you are here. If you're new to the program, we are primarily an interview and a commentary podcast. On Thursday nights, we go live and we do commentary. With me is my regular co-host, Cynthia Eliott. Cynthia, how are you? Welcome as always.
I'm good, Billy. Glad to be here. It'll be an exciting episode for sure.
A lot going on. Also with us tonight, a guest co-host. You know her as KT Truther on X from the KT Truther podcast. Welcome, Katie.
Hi, Billy. Hi, Cynthia. Thanks so much for having me. I'm excited to be here.
Oh, well, thank you. It's great to have you. All right. A lot happening. We're going to talk about the RNC and the Republican convention. We are live right now at 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. At this point, Thursday night for the convention is just getting started, more or less. Trump is expected to speak later. Of course, he will be the rock star of the night. There has been rumors of Elon showing up, but I don't know that that's going to happen. It's fun conjecture. One of the things we're going to talk about, just very briefly, of course, is the shooting itself. I'm sure you've seen it 1,000 times. I debated on whether or not to show it again, but just I got some illustrations here that we're going to talk about. So I am going to show it again just so that it kind of refreshes the geography of the event. Here is what happened last Saturday at the Donald Trump rally.
If you want to really see something that's said, take a look at what happened.
All right, a loss of life there. Very tragic event. I'm shocked. I'll throw to you guys on this. The conspiracy theories, the fact that this was staged, the fact that Trump really didn't get hit, that he had a blood pack on him, all this BS. Cynthia, what do you think of that?
You know, I'm not surprised anything to take away from what really happened, because I think people understood that when that happened, that people were going to support him in droves, and that it meant the end of a lot of Democratic efforts. And so we're going to have that. I do think that there's some substance to a lot of the other rumors that are going around, but we can touch on that later.
Okay, KT.
Yeah, I mean, gut-wrenching, honestly, when it first happened. I mean, immediately, like within minutes, I felt absolutely sick, because not only was he just 1 centimeter away from losing his life, but I knew that there is something more nefarious happening here. The Democrats, I just feel, will stop at nothing. And so as far as conspiracy, I have been on social media. I just recently joined TikTok and on Instagram. And it seems to me that the left wing is really the conspiracy theory now, which they're the biggest conspiracy theory, thinking that Joe Biden was a great president, falling behind him. And then plenty of comments saying that it was shattered glass from teleprompters, which was like, left me feeling very confused.
Yeah.
Because I want the truth. And I just wonder how long it's going to be until not only we get the truth, but the truth is actually acknowledged.
Correct. Using the geography of the event site and using the timing of the video, this I'm going to put this up. There's no audio here, so for the audio audience, I will describe it. What this is the moment that the shooter had the president sized up, which would have been, almost this in the temple area. And just as he fired, the president moved his head, and that's where you get the trajectory through the ear. So getting back to what you were saying there, it really is just millimeters, if not half an inch is probably too much of a distance there. As far as the teleprompters and all that go, I've checked this out. The panels, if you don't know what those are, those little sheets of glass that are put up at an angle in front of a speaker. What those are at the base of those, there are very bright letters that are the script of what you're reading, and that reflects off of the glass, so that you can look at the crowd more or less, and at the same time read what you are saying. Those panels are intact. There's nothing that's broken off. There's nothing involved there. There was a really high-tech, high-res photo that actually showed the path of the bullet going past his ear. How that happens is I have some experience shooting. Rifle shots typically over a distance sound much different than handgun shots at a short distance. Handgun shots at a short distance sound like bangs. You often hear firecrackers. They sound like firecrackers. Rifle shots over distance have more of almost a thunderous type of. You hear a slap and then a little reverberant slap. It's like a type of thing. And that is because as the bullet is traveling through the air, it actually creates a very small sonic boom. It actually splits the air. And in that high-tech photo that they showed, that high-res photo, you can actually see the air being split behind his head as that bullet passes through. So that was a tragic event for sure. I will say this, getting into rebranding, and I know Cynthia has a background in branding. They have an opportunity here, much as the United States did in the wake of 9/11. We had the empathy of the entire world. They were looking to us for leadership against terrorism and other things, and we took ahead and we took that capital, that goodwill of capital that even a lot of our enemies gave us, and we squandered it over the years. Right now, Trump has an opportunity, and like the old saying goes, it's crude. A lot of people don't get it, but never let a crisis go to waste. He has an opportunity here where he is going to have a lot of people tuning in tonight and over the next several weeks, listening to him differently than what they did before. They're going to hear what he wants to say. They're going to hear what's his tone like. This is an opportunity for him to rebrand himself. And what people don't understand, and I'll talk about this a little bit more when we get into some of the people that have spoken at the convention, is he already has the base. He doesn't need the rhetoric. He doesn't need all the stuff that he's been saying for the last 2 years. What he needs to get are the new folks. I'll throw to you, KT, on this. What would you like to see Trump do?
Well, as far as tonight, when it comes to, we'll call it rebranding, right? I think now is a great time to talk about unity. I think now is a great time. I think a lot of people are doing a great job of making these clips of the left just saying, essentially like calling for violence, saying like Trump is a dictator. There's a question that's been floating around, and it's something that I'm like considering a lot, is that if you traveled back in time and was in a room with Hitler prior to him being elected, what would you do? Right? And that's how they painted Trump as Hitler. And so it's no surprise that people are programmed to think that he is going to be a dictator, that he is demonic, that he is, just all the evil things. I think the left and the complicitness and the media have helped paint a very clear picture of who Donald Trump is honestly not. So I think now is a great time for him to talk about unity, to kind of, I think more so, like you said, turn down the rhetoric a little bit and just talk about what he's capable of and what he envisions for our nation with a Trump win in 2024.
Cynthia, what would you advise the president to do if you were advising brand image?
Uh, the country's in a very serious state. The American dream has collapsed. Our younger generations don't have a ladder to climb. And the cherry on top of all the bad news that we've had in recent years is what's been going on between our political parties. And people just really need healing. They need good news. They need hope. They need to be able to look towards the future and be inspired and excited about what's coming. So I think if I was Trump or advising Trump, I would say, focus on what the future looks like and paint an inspiring picture. Don't get controversial. Don't poke the bear. Bring everyone together and give people something to be excited about because they need it. They really do.
Yeah. If I was advising Trump, I think the people that are in place now seem to be doing what I would advise. And one of the things is softening the image of President Trump. I know some of Trump's supporters are going to hate me for saying this, but he has been his own worst enemy over the years. And being the bombastic way he has of presenting himself has fed right into some of the narrative about him. And I've noticed at the convention, the professionals, and I do mean professionals for marketing and branding, have really done a good job in molding a different image. And we're going to start with Trump's granddaughter. And this is exactly what I'm talking about right here.
Hi, everyone. My name is Kai Madison Trump. I am the granddaughter of Donald Trump. I'm speaking today to share the side of my grandpa that people don't often see. To me, he's just a normal grandpa. He gives us candy and soda when our parents aren't looking. He always wants to know how we're doing in school. When I made the high honor roll, he printed it out to show his friends how proud he was of me. He calls me during the middle of the school day to ask how my golf game is going and tells me all about his. But then I have to remind him that I'm in school and I'll have to call him back later. On Saturday, I was shocked when I heard that he has been shot, and I just wanted to know if he was okay. It was heartbreaking that someone would do that to another person. A lot of people have put my grandpa through hell, and he's still standing. Grandpa, you are such an inspiration, and I love you.
Okay, that's exactly what I'm talking about. A
Yeah.
different side of him being presented, a charming young lady expressing her love and admiration for her grandpa. KT, what did you think of that?
I thought it was beautiful, honestly. And is it just me, or did Trump seem a little teary-eyed for a moment?
Oh, yes.
Right? Seeing
And that's
his
what we need.
granddaughter. Yeah. And so, you mentioned kind of the rebranding and making him, softening around the edges. I think they've done a great job with the speakers that they've brought on,
Yes.
as far as women in business, community leaders, people kind of representing the American people. Because where I think people are right now is just, we're tired of the government. We want, and I think we've learned a lot too, to say the American people need to be the ones driving this country. We need things at a state level, at a community level, and then those choices should be reflecting what's happening in our federal government, as opposed to vice versa, them being the supreme elite leaders that we've known for the past couple of years. I think it's time for a change.
Totally agree. Cynthia.
Well, I think one of the things a lot of people don't think of when they think of Trump is how much he's had to fight. So I've been in New York since the late '90s, and I've watched the number of attacks. This is before he became, a fixture on TV. He's been fighting for decades, and what I think a lot of people don't understand is to keep up that level of fight, you have to fuel yourself. So I think a lot of his rhetoric, which he gets demonized for, and it is something that gets him in trouble, rightly so sometimes, is how he keeps himself motivated to keep fighting. But I think at this point, it's nice to see him be able to just sit there and be adored by his granddaughter, and you see him, the grandfather, and that's an image of him that we haven't had a chance to see because he's been so busy fighting.
Yes, totally agree. In the spirit of rebranding and a different kind of message, I'm going to play another clip for you. And you had mentioned unity, and I find it odd that some conservatives and Republicans, and if you're new to the program here, we have a guest, which sometimes bring in new people and all that. I am not an ideologue. I'm not a partisan, and neither is Cynthia. We have our leanings just like everybody else does. We're human beings, but especially on this program, I'm not, those guys are bad and we're great. That's not what we're about here. A lot of the conservatives who have been whining about unity and unfair labels put on the Republican Party jumped on this next person who spoke and spoke ill of her. And there was quite a bit of this online. I'm going to play just a clip. This is Amber Rose.
I watched all the rallies, and I started meeting so many of you, his red hat wearing supporters. I realized Donald Trump and his supporters don't care if you're black, white, gay, or straight. It's all love. And that's when it hit me. These are my people. This is where I belong.
I'm going to put up a little tweet. Some of you may or may not be able to read it, but I'll put it up anyway. And I'm going to go ahead and read it for those who can't. And for our audio audience, this comes from Matt Walsh. And there was a time when I liked Matt Walsh, but he has gotten a little different now, in my opinion. And again, this is my opinion. He's gotten this self-righteous attitude in a lot of his commentary that comes from a lot of times religion. Not to put too sharp of a point on it, but this self-righteousness that you often hear from somebody who has a certain religious doctrine behind them comes off in a lot of his commentary. This is what Matt Walsh saw about the clip that you just saw, and I have no idea what he was watching. The RNC gives primetime speaking slot to a pro-abortion feminist and self-proclaimed slut with a face tattoo whose only claim to fame is having sex with rappers. Truly an embarrassment. Not a single voter will be mobilized by this person. Now, here again, that's a tweet from Matt Walsh. I really found this, isn't the whole point of opening the tent? My opinion on this, Mr. Walsh, here's my opinion on this. This is a political party, not a church. Okay. I don't care what your sexual proclivities happen to be or what your leanings are, or anything else. If you are a conservative in the true sense, small government, minimal taxes, strong defense, etc., you belong in our tent. That's my opinion on that. And I just throw in is that conservatives, especially on the religious right, just cannot resist social issues. And that is something that has been their weakness. If I'm a Democrat and I want to get Republicans totally off message, all I have to do is mention some sexual leaning and say these people should be a protected class, and they're off message. They can't resist it. It's like crack. They're going to come after it. And I've been saying all along that Republicans really need to stay out of social issues. I'll go to Cynthia first.
I thought she did a good job. It did feel left field to me, and it did feel manipulative, but isn't that what a convention like this is for? I felt like it was a pretty obvious role of the dice to get more people of color to take a look at the Republican the Republican Party. But I thought she did a good job. And I mean, what did she hurt? And you know what, Matt, stay out of our fucking twat Honestly, when are politicians and people in the game gonna realize that what women do with their bodies is none of their effing business? Honestly, it gets on my nerves.
Yeah, I would
Like,
agree. I don't want to turn this into a discussion about abortion, but I will say this. I'm very much with women on this and their body autonomy. And regardless of what your position about abortion is, if you truly want to surrender to some of the really strong pro-abortion, no reason, no incest, no rape, no nothing. These are individuals who are largely male. They're largely older males. And to put this in perspective, and not to be crude here, but I'm saying this for a reason. You're putting your body autonomy. You're putting the most private parts of your body into the hands of someone who probably hasn't, gotten it up in the last 20 years, let alone seen a pussy.
oh my
Is
god.
this what you want to do? Is this really what you want to do? But that's a whole nother topic entirely. I really don't like the fact that he used the word slut.
Yeah.
Now he says self-proclaimed slut, which is kind of like that's like his little adore. She said it herself, so I can say it too.
Yeah.
The fact that here again, he has to attack her sexuality.
Mhm.
That really bugs me. KT, what's your opinion on this?
Just no one asked Mac Walsh to speak for everyone else. I think that he is in truly a different class. I wouldn't consider him, oh, this all American, the American population. Once you get to a certain level of fame, honestly. And listen, if he wants to speak on social issues, I think that everybody has their own freedom of speech, but I think it's really poor timing. For one, I felt like she shared her own story. She's already been up against the media for that. She was more accepted doing the slut walk by the mainstream media than she was supporting Donald Trump. And I think that her coming over to the Republican Party, maybe not the conservative party, right? But the Republican Party, is going to just expose more of how people will hate her. The left is going to continue to attack her and call her things, say things like she's not black enough, or she doesn't speak for them, or what the same thing that they've been doing every single time one of these figures, celebrities or stars or whatever you want to call it, has come out in support for Donald Trump. So do it, Matt. You know what? You're free to have your own opinion, but I just simply don't agree. I thought the speech was to the point. Someone said, had she been on the lawn of the White House, when everybody had their tits out on the White House lawn, oh, if it was this, then you guys would be demonizing her. And I said, the difference is I can't operate under what ifs. She was not on the White House lawn, and she was dressed very respectfully. She spoke respectfully. I thought she did a good job. I'm not a fan of her, but at the end of the day, I'm smart enough to know that message was not for me.
Sure. Absolutely. And that's the whole point of this. Like I said earlier, these things, you already have your base. That's why you're nominated. That's the one criticism I would have of Donald Trump Jr., who spoke last night. I'm not going to play any of his, simply because it's the same old, same old. He just said the same thing that he always has. It was the same message. And here again, he's playing to the base. You already have the base. You're in prime time. Every minute matters when you're in prime time, because you might just catch somebody at the right moment. Let's see what the Republicans are saying. They see Don Jr. on there saying the same thing that they've seen on cable news for the last 2 years. Okay, that's the same old, same old. I really like the idea of, you're going after the undecideds here. You're going after people who are giving Trump a second visit after the assassination attempt. That is where your focus should be. Okay. Last night, the headliner was J.D. Vance. Tonight, of course, here again, we're in production Thursday, July 18th, sometime after we're off. Trump will be the headliner at the convention. He will close it out, and it will be interesting to see how they mold this message in the coming weeks at their events and with their PR and all this other stuff. J.D. Vance from Ohio, that is my area of the world. I'm a little bit more familiar with him. I really wasn't a big fan of his during his run here in Ohio. I'm not necessarily, I don't know that he would have been my first choice, but he is. He's on the ticket, so there's no point in getting around it. For those of you who may or may not be that familiar with Ohio, let me just give you some background on Ohio, so you know a little bit about where this is coming from. Ohio often gets labeled as a flyover state, as cornfields, and all these other things. And I can tell you that we're about the seventh, unless it's changed a little bit. We're about the seventh largest economy in the United States. Now, obviously, California, Texas, Florida, New York are all bigger than us, and a few others there I'm sure I'm missing. But for the most part, we're one of the bigger economies in the United States, and we are also a very diverse economy. Medicine is very big here. As you know, some of these left-leaning politicians who talk about how great medicine is on some island off of Costa Rica in comparison to the United States, when something's wrong with their heart, their fat ass is at the Cleveland Clinic. Okay, it's that simple. Energy is very big here. Of course, that was luck. We struck oil here. Technology is very big here. Intel is making a huge investment here. I go to Columbus quite often. Technology down there is it's really amazing stuff that's cutting edge for the entire world. And yes, manufacturing has largely left this area of Pennsylvania, Michigan, and Ohio, but not completely. Ohio is still very strong in manufacturing. Right outside my door, a 10-15-minute drive from here is Timken Steel, one of the leading manufacturers of steel in the world.
Yeah.
Right outside my door, sports. The NFL was founded in my hometown. The Hall of Fame is right down the road from me. And up the road is the Cleveland Browns. Down the road is Ohio State. That's where J.D. Vance went. So this is a pretty active area, and you can't just be kind of like from a small state with a small population, that type of senator. If you're in a state like Ohio, New York, California, you have to have a good awareness of the United States economy, different markets, different marketplaces, different types of industries. And you also have to have a world awareness, because a lot of what we do here in Ohio goes around the world. With that being said, JD is relatively new. He was just elected, I believe, in 2023. So let me here again, getting back to a rebranding. Here's JD Vance, and I've seen this JD Vance before. This is about as wholesome as you can get. Don't you just love this wholesomeness that these politicians do so well? Here's oh yes, I'm going to go out and pet my dog just listening to this. Here we go.
In my life, I had a guardian angel by my side. She was an old woman who could barely walk, but she was tough as nails. I called her Mamaw, the name we hillbillies gave to our grandmothers. Mamaw raised me as my mother struggled with addiction. Mamaw was in so many ways a woman of contradiction. She loved the Lord, ladies and gentlemen. She was a woman of very deep Christian faith. But she also loved the F word. I'm not kidding. She could make a sailor blush.
KT, what is your take on JD Vance?
Mamaw said the F word, and I don't know. I don't know enough about him. Someone in the chat was saying, like, I'd never heard of him until basically he was announced, and listen, let me humble myself. I didn't know who he was either. I've been told by people who are far more savvy in politics than me on the right, some things I should look into, that they support him, that, they're happy that Trump picked him. But I don't know that I'm buying that story. That doesn't seem very, very believable to me, but you always got to make it pretty.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
Why
Cynthia, how do you feel about JD?
I don't know how to feel, honestly. my intuition is smelling something, and it bothers me when that's happening because I'm never wrong. And maybe
Yeah.
it's just that he doesn't really know himself fully yet because he's a baby. The hillbilly thing, for God's sakes, he oversaw Yale Law Review. Could you please stuff the hillbilly crap? Unless you have a really thick accent, I'm sorry, I'm just not buying the hillbilly thing. It feels like a grave exaggeration. I don't dislike him. I just don't know if I like him. I was surprised by him as a choice in initially simply because he was so unheard of, but not surprised by the fact that they chose someone from a state that would have a lot of pull and also that was the age of millennials. I do think if he's going to whip out the Lord and the Christian and all that, that's going to actually hurt them in some ways, but help them in others. I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know what to think. I'll get back to you on that.
I think it plays to the base. Let me just stress too, here again from a branding perspective, the first rule with the vice president. I have not known, and I'm not young, but I've been around long enough that I don't recall any time that a vice presidential pick actually helped the ticket dramatically. There have been times when it's hurt. So the first rule when you picking your vice presidential running mate is do no harm. That is the first rule. And yes, I know the inclination that a lot of people have. Oh, swing for the fence, get a big name in there. Da, 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 da. But the only problem with that is with a big name, yes, comes big recognition, but also comes big problems. So, in terms of having to manage the look of your ticket, having an unknown, having a safe bet, so to speak, boring and safe is generally how you go with vice presidents. And I know a lot of people want a big shiny star in there, but that's typically not how it works. So I think that from that aspect, they did what a lot of people would have expected. You want to get somebody in there that doesn't have skeletons and bodies falling out of the closet. But by the same token, he's not going to help you that much. I mean, I would say most people of a certain age, as they say, can probably name all the presidents since World War II. I know I can do it very easily. I'm not sure I could with the vice presidents. I'm not sure I could. So, either one of you want to chime in on that, KT? Would you agree? It's probably a safe choice.
No one said there'd be a test. No, I can't name all of the presidents since the World War. No one said there would be math. When it comes, like, I see what you're saying. I mean, think of like Mike Pence, like, again, a person that I didn't know, which is what makes me kind of skeptical. I was glad to see that, he's been a Marine. I see we have a comment that says, that he's a Christian Zionist and is going to be into war with Iran. And I do notice a theme at the convention. Some of the people that are speaking are talking about Israel, they're talking about, I don't know that they mentioned Russia and Ukraine, but I know they're saying a lot of things about Israel, which to me, I get it, the idea of an ally, but we're at a point in time in our country where we're behind America first because we truly want it to be America first. And so I think all the issues that we have really just supersede that. And we want to know that this go around, we're not going to get into another war. So hopefully just, he's a Christian and he is military. Hopefully he's awake enough to know, past wars have been, could have been won without as much bloodshed as it was. We were lied to about a lot of things. So I'm just hoping that he is more awake than that. But that's where my distrust comes in, as I just don't know enough about him to say I trust that he's not going to allow warmongers or be a warmonger himself to get into another war for profit, where the American people and other citizens of other countries suffer because of war. I'm anti-war.
Yes. I would agree with that sentiment. Cynthia, do you have anything to add to that before I go on to the next segment here?
No, I agree with what KT is saying. I believe in a strong military. We have to always be prepared to defend ourselves, but we have a history of utilizing war to pad the pockets of a handful of companies, and that isn't going to fly. It's going to be interesting this next with Trump is in the office to see what happens when things arise, because the people are much smarter and they're much more willing to point out truths. They're able to find out those truths in ways that weren't possible in past years. So it's actually really affected. That's where all the college riots came from. It's an interesting time to be alive. But anyway.
Interesting time to be alive. Good way to put it. Cynthia and I, if you're regular listeners to the program, and for those of you who are new, obviously we're very happy that you are here. I've gotten actually a lot of grief, probably more so than Cynthia, because I've been more clear about this for over 6 months, 7 months, 8 months. I've been saying very clearly that that Biden will not be running against Trump. I don't know who it's going to be. But I've been saying for months now that Biden was not going to be the nominee. And I got accused of being a conspiracy theorist. I got accused of just what the Democrats were telling me at the time was that, this is something that people are talking about to discredit his presidency.
Billy, I have to say something that I realized today. I have been punished in the last 6 months to a year with friendships and business relationships by people when they saw my videos on social media. So it's more so less than I get comments on social media and more that I do not get support for any of my projects or the work that I do from a lot of people because they want me to be a Democrat. And when I say, well, I'm not. I see a disintegration in the relationship and this constant judgment and pushing me as though I'm not speaking facts, much more factual than most of the conversations I've had with Democrats, which border on delusional. And I see that on both sides of the aisle, but it's been bad.
Yeah.
Anyway,
the scuttlebutt online right now, and here again, I'm sticking by what I said. Biden's. If they run Biden, the only reason they would run him at this point is to be a sacrificial lamb, because they feel that the election's lost, and nobody wants to go up and become the nominee and just to lose the election and have that on their resume for the next 4 years if they want to run again. But with that being said, I don't believe that he's going to be the nominee no matter what, because the politics and the optics of this aside, I don't believe he is capable.
Yeah.
And here again, for the new folks out there, this isn't to be mean. Here again, I'm not an ideologue on this. I'm not a partisan. I take no pleasure in saying this. If he was my father, I would say, hey, Dad, man, you've been in government for 50 years, 40 years, whatever it's been. You've been president. You're going to be a part of history forever. And you're to the point now where you just need to relax and enjoy life. You need to be sitting in the backyard, drinking a beer, playing catch with the dog and just enjoying life. You do not need the pressure of being president anymore. You can't handle it. That would be the conversation that I would have as a human being. So I want to be very clear as I go through some of the things I've heard here. It's not with any delight. It's not with any delight at all. The scuttlebutt is, from recent reports, is that the withdrawal from the nomination, now this is to be very clear, not from the presidency. If he would step down from the presidency, that's a whole different set of mechanics there with the Constitution and everything else. That's not going to happen, I don't think. What I do think he's going to do is pull an LBJ, which is going to be, I shall not seek and I shall not accept the nomination of my party. The plan is that he will step away as early as this weekend. That's what some of the scuttlebutt is. Apparently a very good writer by the name of John Meacham is helping him, according to reports, if this is true, and I have no way of verifying this, is polishing up some of the remarks to make it very eloquent, because it will be a part of history. Here again, he will not be resigning the presidency. I want to make that very clear. The only way that he, as far as I know, will not finish out his term is if he would pass away. Okay. The plan is that he will not endorse Harris. He will not endorse Kamala Harris. And it's not entirely clear whether she wants it. That's another open thing entirely. The feeling in the tight circle of Democrats is that they are not necessarily going to hand over a throne to Harris, but they are more than likely going to go to an open convention.
Mhm.
Okay. Super delegates will not be allowed on the first ballot. And Harris, the rumors are that that she is also considering different running mates, including Andy Bashir and a number of other people. So, thoughts on this first, KT? How likely is this going to happen really soon?
I think it's going to happen really soon. However, this is not the first time that, a narrative, a fake narrative has been leaked. So, everybody might be saying that and it could not happen. There's always that what if moment,
Sure.
right? Because it's hard to operate in truth if it's not happened yet. So we're talking predictions. I think that if Kamala actually wanted to be the president, she would be pissed right now at Biden. If this narrative is true, and if she had any cojones, she would invoke the 25th on Biden. You're not fit enough to run in 4 months. You're not fit enough to do it right now. And she should take a stand and prove, that she's upset. And not only that she's upset, that she actually wants the presidency. If that's her goals, I would actually be very happy if that happened.
Yes.
I think that's a great play that I'll come out the clear winner of, but you can only hope.
That's part of the issue, is that one of the things that reportedly has been happening is Biden has not only been asking advisors whether he can win, but whether Kamala can, and the answers aren't good either way. Cynthia, what is your take on
I've
this?
been over here like spitting nails on to say something. I'm sorry. I don't hate anybody. I don't have the energy for it. Life's too short. But I do not get the impression that she even cared that much about being vice president. I feel kind of like she's been on a vacation the last 4 years. I mean, when you think about her energy at these events where she's like, la, 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 la. I can't even imitate it because it's that hard to actually watch. It's like, is she actually repeating the same phrases over and over and over? And this is not the behavior, these unprepared speeches where they don't actually make any sense. And I realize those are being cherry picked, but it's happened one too many times. And when I watch her at events, it's almost like she's hit up the bar before she got in there to hang out with some people and be like, let's go chill. Let's go be politicians really quick. I mean, I don't get that she's ever cared about being president.
Okay. Let me throw this at you too. In terms of your vote changing, a lot of people may be adjusting their leanings. I know I have a little bit. I haven't really come out for a candidate, but obviously Trump has a renewed flavor right now. And you got to keep in mind, not only coming off of the tragic events of last week, but typically candidates get a bump from the convention. That almost always happens. Now, with that being said, I know that there's a lot of people that listen to this program that are very pro-Trump, and they're going to be mad at even the suggestion that this could change. But I'm telling you, it can, and I'll tell you how. Here again, I have a marketing and branding background. I've been around a lot of companies who have had damaged brands, sometimes through no fault of their own. An accident happened, a lawsuit happened, or whatever, and it put their brand in a bad light. And the temptation in those situations is for brands to go out into the public and litigate the case again, and that never works. What you have to do, and it's not fair, but you have no rights in the court of public opinion, but you can manipulate the public opinion, and that's what branding is all about. And I want to give you a word of caution. If you are a Trump supporter, if you say we're in it now, we're going to win, be very careful. Because the power of rebranding a dynamic candidate at that Democratic convention in 4 weeks is very potentially powerful. And here's an example. Let's forget all these Democrats for a moment. Let's say something out of the ordinary happens, like they pick somebody that we haven't considered yet. Or I don't think this is going to happen, but let's just suppose Kennedy ends up as the Democratic nominee. Here's somebody who has, like Trump now, has not been untouched by assassination. This is somebody who has gone up against a lot of resistance, and this is somebody who is physically fit. Okay, this guy has a body that a 35, 40-year-old man wishes he had. Okay, this guy is jacked. Okay, he's really strong on the vaccination stuff. You know, the book about Fauci, the real Anthony Fauci. This is all stuff that, in my opinion, is very, very solid. And if the Democrats would get somebody like that and rebrand what they got, and their brand has sucked so far. Their brand has been, our guy is not as bad as the other one. That's been their brand, and that sucks. You never comparison branding, in my opinion, never wins. Like taste test, I mean, which one do you like better? All you do is raise your competition, give that your competition attention. And all the Democrats have been doing is saying, well, our guy isn't as bad as that. Well, it turns out that you're not even as good as him. Okay. So where do you go from here? You get a younger, he's a 70-year-old guy, but, you know, in all of the optics are concerned, you're talking about a very vibrant individual being rebranded for an entire week on prime time, just like the Republicans are doing now. And the numbers that you're looking at right now could be different for Trump. KT, you're not getting too settled. You're not getting overconfident, are you?
No, absolutely not, because I know anything could happen. We saw on Saturday, they attempted to take his life. So someone, I say they, the royal they, right? Someone attempted to take President Trump's life, and a lot of things can happen. We've been through the ringer when it comes to Trump, and I just always like to be transparent about it. Is my concern for Trump this entire time of him running is, what are they going to do to him next? So we saw the assassination attempt, and then when he gets into the White House, which we can't let our foot off the gas, we still need to be recruiting people to be involved locally and asking people to turn out and vote. I don't want people to get complacent with this red wave theory. It needs to be so overwhelming. But I often do wonder about that. And I know that maybe this is not part of the segment, but with everything that kept him busy with in his first presidency, do you think that if he gets into the White House this time, that anything is going to be so radically different? Do you think that they're going to let their foot off the gas or not file a bunch of more lawsuits or come at him? I mean, it's really, it's something I think about a lot, because I genuinely love President Trump. I think he was an amazing president. The first 4 years, I'm not saying I have no criticisms of him, but I think about what he would have been capable of if he wasn't busy with that. And I think we as the American people did miss out on, even more greatness when it came to it, because he was so busy with the Russia collusion, and all the other hoaxes, painting our president in such a bad light, really trying to restrict his voice. So that's a concern of mine. And I would like to hear what you guys think, are the possibilities could happen if he's back in office again.
Cynthia, I know we would both like RFK. We think he should be given. I'm glad he finally got Secret Service, and he should be given a voice at whatever they decide to do in the upcoming debates. Now, whether you love him or not is beside the point. But at this point, I do believe he needs to be heard. Cynthia, go ahead.
Well, on the RFK, I thought that was the dumbest thing that the Democrats did. And it told me that Biden, well, and I knew Biden wasn't in power, but the way that they handled Kennedy told me that somebody else was in power and they didn't like him. And that would most likely speak to people controlling a great deal of money, because that's who he upsets. I thought Trump did a good job when he was in office. I always wondered, and I know this is going to be a wild theory, but I always wondered if the coronavirus thing wasn't, I don't know, there's always been something off about that, and it certainly disrupted his presidency. It was so well weaponized against him. But in terms of his, I just have to say something about his the assassination attempt on him.
Sure.
There are people who have a lot to hide that have nothing to do with they don't care about being blue or red. They care about power, and they care about control. And a great deal of our politicians on both sides of the aisle are controlled by a handful of people. And those people make extraordinary trillions of dollars, millions and billions of dollars are made. And there have been a lot of sketchy things going on for the last 6 years, like starting back when the closures happened and all the stuff that's happened since. There are a lot of big secrets that a lot of major players do not want to come out. And if Trump gets up in the office there are people who don't care whether he's a Republican or a Democrat. What they care about is the fact that he will dump that information out into the universe, and it will crucify their careers and their positions. And I think that has more to do with what the assassination attempt on him was than the Democrats. Necessarily. I'm not saying they're not Democrats. I'm saying that the red blue thing, I think, was secondary to being absolutely terrified of him, because he speaks what he believes to be the truth.
KT, I see you reacting. Go ahead.
Yeah, I was just going to say that's an excellent point. I think the same thing when it comes to the coronavirus. I think it had a lot. Let's hear my theory really quickly. Is I think it had a lot to do with the downfall of Jeffrey Epstein. If you really want my honest opinion of it, I think a lot of these things are connected. And just like it's taken 60 years to get the truth about JFK, and there's still so much theory surrounding it and possibility, I think it's going to be the same for COVID. I think it's going to be the same for the attempt on President Trump. It's just news moves so fast that it feels like we're forgetting a lot of things. And, you mentioned earlier about just being a nation that's like, we have a lot of healing to do. I agree with that. I think a lot of people have severe post-traumatic stress syndrome from what we witnessed during COVID, and everything, people waking up for the lies for Trump. I did want to mention RFK really quickly. I think he's a pretty decent person. I like his work when it comes to the Children's Health Alliance, I think is the name of it. Forgive me if that's wrong. And I think that, if Trump gets in as well, I would hope to see RFK have some kind of position there. And it seems like there is a friendship there underneath the kind of, separation of things at this moment. I think there is honestly a friendship there. And, hopefully he's got a spot too. As far as him coming out as a Democrat or the Democrat nominee, to me, that seems very unlikely. And it's because of what you mentioned, Cynthia, the interest, the money, the pharmaceuticals. Even though I feel like he rides the line, I think people might be a little bit misconstrued about him being totally anti, big pharma. I think that, they just make so much money off of illness that they would be terrified to have him.
Yeah, I think the labeling him as an anti-vaxxer is unfair. The mRNA, technically, if you want to define a vaccine by, like, for example, the flu vaccine is a form of the flu. That isn't the case with COVID. And, it was something that designs an attack within your body. And it hasn't been without its problems. I think that's been pretty clear. So, yes, the only thing I would say moving forward is if you are a Trump supporter and you're very encouraged, as you should be, about the new polling numbers and all these other things, it's not won yet. Okay. It's not November. The election has not happened yet. James Carville, who I don't particularly care for in terms of his ideology, but he has said some really great things. And he said this one time about leading in the polls. He said, you sit on an egg and it hatches. You sit on a lead and it rots. You don't sit on this lead if you're a Republican. Be light on your feet. Be prepared to mix up your game. Like I'll throw in a bunch of boxing metaphors here. You got to be able to duck. You got to be able to shift back and forth, throw a few jabs and mix things up, because I think what the Republicans may face in fall, in terms of what they had with the Democrats for the last 4 years, getting back to the boxing metaphors, is the rope-a-dope. You've been given Biden, and his only brand has been, I'm not as bad as Trump. And that's a very weak brand. And you've gotten used to just beating up on this guy who's just barely standing up in the corner of the ring, right? And if you know what the rope-a-dope was, that's something that Muhammad Ali did one time against a boxer who was perceived to be his superior, is he let this guy punch himself out. And to the point where he was so exhausted from punching that Muhammad Ali took him out. And this is a good setup, in my opinion. If the Democrats were really planning this has been a rope-a-dope. Okay. You've had a very weak candidate for the last 4 years. And now you get a strong one in there. You get a rock star at the top of that Democratic ticket with the right branding, and all of a sudden you're going to be taking the punches now. You're going to be the one in the corner. So just be very careful about sitting on this lead. I'll give the last word to you two. Let's go with Cynthia first. Last word.
Oh no, I think it'll be interesting just to hear the results of Trump's speech and to see what happens with Biden now that he has the coronavirus, supposedly. Seems
Yeah.
like a really good reason to get him out of there, an elegant way to bow out, if you will. But at the end of the day, I just hope they get their shit together and think about the American people, because frankly,
Yeah.
at this point, that's what people are in a lot of pain. They really are. They're hurting financially. They're scared because there's so much chaos going on that a lot of truths are coming to the surface. And we need leadership that leads the people, that don't lead themselves straight to the bank.
Yeah.
We're ready for that.
KT, last word.
Yeah, Cynthia, that was awesome. Really awesome. I definitely think that, healing, unity. I can't believe you brought up boxing metaphors and didn't say float like a butterfly and sting like a bee. I was like, let me not interrupt Billy on my first time on his show. But yeah, don't get comfortable, guys. Don't let influencers speak for you. I think is something really important to know right now. Like we saw Matt Walsh. I feel like a lot of people disagreed with that. We're not here to nitpick people. Even if you're a Christian, there's a difference between righteous judgment and judgment. And we just need unity. And most importantly, it's got to be about the American people stepping up and helping to change the way our nation is going. But we can only do that once we get some control back from this government entity. They're the ones that are making decisions that are absolutely crushing us. So we have to be brave. We have to be strong. We have to stand up and we have to fight. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. KT, before you go, I'm going to stay with you just a moment. The KT Truther podcast, all this other good stuff. Where can people find you online?
Oh, thanks so much for that. Yeah, KT Truther podcast. I'm available a lot on X. I do a lot of things on X, to be honest with you. It's definitely proven to be the least amount of censorship. I'm also on Rumble, on YouTube, and on Spotify. Yeah, and I have a link tree in my bio, so you could pretty much find everything there.
And you do a lot of spaces, correct? The audio spaces, the audio forums on X.
Yeah, I try to do one podcast a week and at least one space a week. And then other than that, I'm space hopping. I am a part of the Divisive Network, so that's been exciting. Speaking of rebranding, that's what I've done. A lot of people knew me from Louisiana Sister Squad podcast, and I had a great time doing that for almost 3 years with my sister. But I'm on my own now, and I'm just really enjoying this moment, stepping into where I feel like I need to be.
Awesome. Cynthia, where can people find you and how's the new book doing?
Oh, the new book is doing really well. It comes out September 7th. I have a sit-down interview, in-person interview at Newhouse on August 21st to discuss the American dream and the collapse of the American dream and what we can do to reignite it, to provide a ladder to our younger generation. So I'm looking forward to that. That's at Newhouse, and you can find that information on my web. I haven't put that event up yet because we just got the date for that, but you can find out about all the events. I'm making an appearance Sunday night at Frederick Pontone Gallery. I'm hosting a 3-night art event there for fashion art and movement, singing, music, and so you can find out about that event, which is actually this weekend, on my website shamanisis.com, and you can learn about the work that I do to teach underserved communities artificial intelligence at soultechfoundation.org.
That is fantastic, and we'll have to talk about that more next time for the new people who have come in largely because of KT or what have you. Shaman's got this thing with AI. It's fantastic. We'll have to talk more about that later. My name is Billy Dees. If you haven't figured that out by now, I got it pasted everywhere, right? You can find me on X. That's kind of like my social media home, the former Twitter, at Billy Dees. I have my links in my bio. You can generally find me on most social media just by Googling up, searching up Billy Dees. I don't vary up my name. Sometimes it's the Billy Dees podcast, but it's pretty much the same name on all the platforms. The podcast itself is well established on just about all major podcast platforms. We've been around now going on 10 years in its current form. So we're not a newbie when it comes to podcast and audio content. Very passionate about the spoken word as an art form. And if you'd like to follow me on X, that would be awesome. You can find out what's the latest things that we're up to here. Shaman and I are obviously associates. There's a number of other people that in our little group that we do a lot with content online on various causes. So do check us out. Follow Cynthia at Shamanisis, KT Truther, at KT_Truther on X, and follow me at Billy Dees on X, and check me out on your favorite podcast platform. Thank you very much for listening to our podcast today. It's going to be an interesting week or two, and we will be on top of it here. Have a great week.
Thank you for listening to the Billy Dees podcast. Follow Billy Dees on X at Billy Dees for updates about the program.